Good morning, I'm Raine Musñgi and welcome to Follow the Money. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. In today's episode of Follow the Money, we explore the rising threat of cyber attacks on small businesses and households in the Philippines. As more companies and individuals go digital, how do these groups safeguard their sensitive information and protect themselves from the growing tide of cyber threats? Robert McArdle, Director of Cybercrime Research at Trend Micro, joins us live to tell us the way we can address increased risk from data breaches and financial scams. Robert, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Trend Micro has been at the forefront of cybersecurity for decades. Could you share some recent successes or key milestones that Trend Micro has achieved in protecting small businesses and households in the Philippines?
Yeah, so cybercrime by its very nature, it's a very global type of crime. So while people in the Philippines will be targeted, they will often be targeted by things that affect the entire region or people who speak the same languages as them. So within that space, probably two of the largest crimes we've been seeing recently would be ransomware and phishing attacks or getting banking information from you. We've actually been successful in working with law enforcement this year to shut down the largest ransomware group in the world, as well as one of the largest phishing campaign groups in the world. And then looking a bit forward, we have the emerging risk of deepfakes and AI usage by criminals. We've just actually announced a new deepfake inspector product, especially to help people to determine if they are actually talking with a real person when they're on, for example, a Zoom or Teams call.
Right. Well, according to a 2023 report by the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, over 50% of small businesses in the Philippines did experience a cybersecurity incident with an average financial loss of about 2 million pesos per attack. Now, how can small businesses better protect themselves, and what financial strategies should they consider to mitigate these risks?
Yeah, so first of all, it's actually really important to have some solid security software in place defending your business. If you think about, for example, a small business like a retail outlet in the real world. So if you, an internet business is very much like where you have a shop where one of your parts of the business faces out onto the most popular shopping street in the city, but the other side of the business is facing out onto the most dangerous alley in the entire city. And that's essentially what the internet is. So if you were running a business like that, of course you would have strong security in place to be able to protect the actual business. And it's the exact same when we talk about going on the internet. So first of all, really important to have solid security in place, and then taking some financial risk strategies as well. So for example, making sure that all of your finances aren't in one location, so if criminals do get access, that they don't get access to everything that you have.
Right. So can you share with us, is there a particular budget that people should be allocating monthly or even yearly for cybersecurity?
So it very much is going to depend a bit on what the business does, right? Most businesses that are in the kind of small or medium size, cybersecurity is not what they do. It's something they have to factor in if they're going to do business online. So at that sort of level, it's going to really depend on the risk appetite for different companies and how much they can absorb. Luckily, they're not going to be alone in this here in the Philippines. If they look internationally, they can see kind of what recommendations for other industries are out there. So definitely I would recommend look at some international statistics on how much people are investing in this space, and then it's really a board decision on how much risk they're going to accept.
Right. Well, meanwhile, we have ransomware, and those attacks surged by 15% in Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. That's last year. Now, for individuals, this often translates to financial losses as well and compromised personal data. Is there a way that households can prepare financially or potential cybersecurity threats? And what steps can they really do, like practically do, to avoid these pitfalls?
Yeah, unfortunately, in the first half of the year, we've seen the most successful half of the year for ransomware to date. Estimates around 460 million was lost to ransomware globally in just 6 months. So it's a huge, huge impact. And the majority of those these days are targeting larger organizations rather than home users, if you like. But in the home user space, it's again very much about having some software to protect you. So the reason here is that these are very technical attacks that happen at extremely fast speeds when they do happen because they're computer code. So without an actual security solution also running as software, you really are not going to be able to defend yourself. And what's key from a consumer or home user point of view is that we all access the internet not only through laptops, we mostly probably use mobile devices as well, right, to access them. So you want to have a solution that will let you, with one license, install on your laptop, install on your mobile phone, maybe your kids' devices as well, and secure all of those centrally. So that would be one of the most practical things that you can do to defend, in particular against ransomware. And secondly, having some backups for the things that are most important to you, which might be some of your financial data, but for us in households, it's also going to be photos of ourselves.
All right, Robert, we seem to have lost your audio. Hi, Robert. All right, we'll have to get back to Robert McArdle of Trend Micro in a moment. Meantime, do stay with us. We'll be taking a quick break. And we're back with Robert McArdle of Trend Micro. Earlier, before our audio was cut off, we were talking about doing backups. So I'm wondering, Robert, with the rise of cyber attacks, some businesses are turning to cyber insurance as a safety net. How realistic is that, especially since this year alone, only 10% of small businesses in the Philippines have cyber insurance coverage? What does it actually do? And when should owners consider whether they should invest in cyber insurance?
So while I do respect anybody who has the budget and wants to go down the route of actually acquiring cyber insurance, it really shouldn't be a replacement for actually having security in the first place. So if you think about, again, like let's say a physical world setup, I would personally much prefer to have security in place that stops somebody smashing the window of my shop and getting in and stealing my things, rather than knowing I can fill out some forms afterwards and hopefully eventually reclaim some of the losses from that. So it's critical to have the security in place first. Also, the security industry is much more mature than the cyber insurance industry. Generally speaking, security industry and Trend Micro as well have been around for 35, almost 40 years. Whereas the cyber insurance industry is still finding its feet and is at an earlier stage.
Yeah, so we have physical security, but still, as you mentioned, our mobile phones have become vulnerable to phishing scams, especially, phishing scams targeting households. Of course, a study of yours just this year highlighted that phishing scams targeting Filipino households increased by 25% in the past year. Is there a way that families can protect themselves from these scams, and what kind of role would financial literacy play in this defense?
Yeah, so there's essentially, when it comes to phishing scams, especially in the mobile device, there's two main ways. One is technical, which would be having some software in place which will identify that link looks a lot like your bank, for example, but isn't actually the bank. And the second very much is around user education. On that front, there's a very good part of Trend Micro called Internet Safety for Kids and Family. It's free. If you look it up, or ISKF for short, they have many, many videos teaching about how to protect against phishing scams, but also things for kids about social media online and so on. And really, that user awareness is arguably the best defense that you have against the phishing scam, because you can look at that link and instead of clicking on it and giving your details away, you'll think, well, wait, why would my bank be contacting me this way, or why are they saying something so urgent that I need to click on it in the next couple of minutes, otherwise my account will be closed. So between that combination of arming the user with user education so that they don't fall in the first place, and that backup solution that if they do, which is acceptable, they're going up against actual criminals that are trying to target them, that the software will pick it up and say, actually, I really don't think you should be going through this.
Indeed. Now, there are some groups or organizations pitching for actual devices that could store, let's say, all of your passwords or even all of your financial account data and all of that. Is that something, or even like an external accessory that will allow you a VPN? Are those things helpful?
So well, I can say what I personally do. So what I personally do is I use software. There's multiple providers out there that will keep track of your passwords for you for each individual site. And the nice thing about using something like that is I use genuinely different passwords for every single site that I access. And in most cases, I can't remember what they are because they're essentially randomly generated. So I have to remember one password for the overall actual software itself. And I would normally have some multi-factor authentication on my phone, so I have my phone with me. And what that means is that if criminals do compromise one website and they get access to your password for that one website, then they have your password for that one website. They don't have access to anything else in your life. So a solution like that are very easy to find. There's some free ones available as well. I would recommend that for any home users to look at those password manager type solutions.
Mm-hmm. Well, cybersecurity is increasingly becoming a part of financial planning for both businesses and individuals. Is there a way that financial advisors can integrate cybersecurity risks into their clients' financial plans? You mentioned that, of course, budgets vary, but what are the key considerations that they should be making, especially in a high-risk environment like the Philippines?
Yeah, so that's actually a question that's very much a financial risk type question, right? Even more so than the cybersecurity one. So it's something I'm not a full expert in. But what I would advise is I know in other countries around the world, they have a lot of very good best practice guidelines on this, which will work just as well in the Philippines because of the global nature of cybercrime. And if you are advising a company on this, you have to factor in the company's own state as well. So while one company may be able to dedicate more of a percentage of their resources to securing themselves, others might be in a growth phase and they need that money for investment and so on. So it's really a case of bringing those best practices that are out there, talking with the board and making a calculated decision together on what risk you're going to accept in the next 12 months or 24 months and so on.
Would you be able to share with us what are the current trends that the rest of the world might be undertaking so that, we are as an organization or even as a household, even as a large organization, perhaps we would be able to prepare ourselves and, keep up with the standards of the rest of the world in terms of cybersecurity?
Yeah, so at an organizational level, the two largest risks that organizations face today when it comes to cybercrime, one would be a ransomware event happening to the company. The second one would be what we would call a business email compromise or targeted phishing attack against one of the executives. In the ransomware case, it can be very crippling because not only does it effectively shut your business down for a period of time, which can be incredibly expensive in itself, especially if you're in manufacturing, for example, but then the demand of that ransom plus the threat of leaking your customer data and so on can in some cases even be an organization-ending event if something like that happens. And then on the executive targeting side of things, it's very much more bespoke. It's tailored to target an individual in your organization who has the ability to wire large amounts of money, so normally somebody senior in the finance department, and ultimately get them to believe that they are sending money to maybe at the behest of the chief financial officer or something like that. So in both cases, security software, huge difference. Education really helps, especially in the second case, right? As well as some best practices around even safety words that cycle on a regular month. So unless the CFO mentions a certain word, you cannot wire money above a certain level, those types of things that hopefully the attackers themselves won't have discovered from the compromise that they've done so far.
Earlier, we were just talking with a blockchain consultant, and he was saying that blockchain would be able to help also with cybersecurity. When do you consider blockchain technology in securing your financial data and all kinds of data, in fact?
So from a security point of view, I think honestly blockchain gives some transparency to where the actual transactions have gone to. So you can see money moved from A to B and then on to C and so on. From a purely security point of view, it doesn't necessarily help. In fact, the emergence of blockchains, Bitcoin in particular, is exactly the reason why ransomware is the crime that it is today. So before Bitcoin came along, if you were in one country and you needed to wire money to criminals in another country, it was kind of a very convoluted step to do. You would either have to do banking transfers, which the banks would regularly detect as fraud and shut down, or you'd have to go through some sort of third-party payment provider. And blockchain completely removed that. So it was suddenly very easy to move money from one place in the world to another, and that really allowed ransomware to get to the point where we've seen ransoms worth $75 million being paid to get out of the ransom. So I think personally, from the payment point of view, blockchain actually enables more crime than it actually prevents.
Understood. Now, finally, given the personal and financial toll that cybercrime can take, is there personal advice that you would offer to Filipinos, both business owners and households, to not only protect their finances, but also build a resilient mindset against the inevitability of cyber threats?
Yeah, so I'm glad you used the word mindset, because that's honestly where I would always start with people. By far the most also affordable way to defend yourself is to fortify your mind, for want of a better word, right? So that should always be your first line of defense, so that when you see something that's too good to be true or a little bit off, it gives you that extra 1 or 2 seconds where you consider what you're doing before you go through it, clicking the link, running the file, that sort of thing. So in that area, I mentioned it earlier, Internet Safety for Kids and Family, from Trend Micro website, entirely free. There's dozens and dozens of really good videos on just about all areas of cyber attacks that work from everything from kids all the way up to adults and everything in between. And then as a second layer, genuinely looking at the right security software for yourself, whether that is a home-based solution at home or one that is at the right level for the business size that you are, right? So if you're a medium-sized business, you don't need full enterprise-level software. That would take more running than that you actually need. You want something a bit more worry-free in that space. And then finally, your third avenue of defense is backup. So backup is truly your backup solution when either the mindset itself doesn't work or the next layer of security software doesn't work. At least you have some peace of mind in there that hopefully everything hasn't actually been taken.
All right, simple solutions and keeping it real. Trend Micro, of course, is highlighting the importance of cybersecurity for small businesses and households in the Philippines and addressing how they can protect better themselves against increasing digital threats. Grateful to be able to encounter you as you visit Manila. Robert McArdle of Trend Micro, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. Hope to see people at Decode later today. Thank you.
Grateful, thank you. Now, before we go, we'll leave you with this thought from American computer security consultant, author, and convicted hacker Kevin Mitnick. The biggest risk to companies and individuals is thinking they're not a target. And that's it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it here on BNC, the Billionaire News channel, always on top.